All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Was really happy to get all three of these bills passed without much in the way of obstruction, although there was plenty of debate on the third bill, which we intended to do to allow members to have their say, because this is something that's important to a great many people. I first want to start by thanking our membership for supporting Kansas City and the state of Missouri by investing in Missouri and partnering with the teams. Also want to thank them for the legislation to provide disaster relief to St. Louis. That's something that was very important to me. I have family in St. Louis that was affected by it in a small measure, so I was very glad to see that. And then I also want to thank, of course, the governor, who I think led the way on a lot of this, and really couldn't have done it without his leadership, I don't think. So, but I'm just very happy that Missouri has a chance to be one of the 22 states that has an NFL franchise. These things are very valuable, and I was reading where some people consider the Dallas Cowboys America's team, but that if you look at statistically around the world in terms of fans and fan base, the Kansas City Chiefs are the world's football team. And to have something like that be in your state, I think that is very valuable and worth investing in these public entities to try to keep the teams here. I'm under no illusion that this guarantees that the teams will stay, but I think it does make a statement that Missouri really wants the teams to stay and is willing to make an investment with the teams to keep them here. So very glad that we were able to get that done today. I'll sign the bills later with Senator O'Loughlin, and then it's on to the governor's desk. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
The legislation would require significant input from local entities as well. Obviously, last year a bill on that failed. Are you optimistic about a future vote of that? What is the fate of that?
I am. Just talking with neighbors and folks back home. I think there were some issues last year with how it was done. I think given this year, people would know this is it. They're going to leave. If they don't have this investment, I think people will really come out and support the Chiefs. I think in all likelihood, in Jackson County, it would be a vote for the Chiefs. And something that I would hope for is that we could lower the tax so that citizens are getting a lowering of the taxes that they're paying, and that it would pass and the Chiefs would be able to stay. And then I think in terms of the Royals, I do think that Clay County site is very attractive. I think you would need a vote up there, or perhaps there's another source of funding in Kansas City at the other sites that have been mentioned.
During committee hearings over the last 2 weeks, there seemed to be a gulf between the amount of information shared by the Chiefs about their plans if they stay in Missouri, than the Royals, who just said that they're considering multiple spots in Missouri. Are you worried that this is sort of creating a new bidding war between Clay County and Jackson over the Royals specifically?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But for me, as long as they stay in Missouri and citizens get to have their say, of course there would have to be a vote in Clay County. I'm okay with that. But for me, I think the main thing is that we keep the teams in Missouri. And I think with the legislation that we passed, we've made that much more likely.
In the budget committee, teams go to Clay.
I don't prefer anything. I just think the Clay County site, with the funding layers that they have, is very attractive. But if there was a source of funding in Kansas City, I think it'd be great there too.
In the budget committee yesterday, the representative from the Jackson County legislature said they'd want a commitment from the team before they would even schedule a vote. Do you see that as setting up for a predetermined result, or do you think that's feasible?
Ideally, that would be the case. I'm not sure that we're going to get that, but I do think, given that the state has said that we really want to invest in it, and if there's a vote in November that's on the schedule, I think we could have a really clear idea that the teams would stay here if the vote is positive, and that would be part of the marketing plan. So I think we might not get a guarantee, but I think you'd have an understanding, and when people go vote, they'll know if we do this, they'll stay. If they don't, they got to look elsewhere.
When do you expect a vote of the people in, say, Jackson?
I think the earliest time would be, just in terms of scheduling, November.
Did you hear what Deron McGee told us on Monday, and that he doesn't think a vote of the people would be likely for either team in Jackson County this year.
I did not hear that from former Representative Deron McGee. I think in terms of the teams wanting to know where they're going, I think that would be the best thing, but I'll probably speak with former Representative McGee.
Given that the Kansas deadline is June 30th, but a vote can't happen in Missouri locally until well after that.
Yeah.
Do you have any expectations that the Royals, for example, would actually commit to Missouri before June 30th, before knowing how that vote would go?
That was one of the things brought up in committee. I don't know what the teams will do. They have their own plans on what to do. I think that's very unlikely. But I'm just worried about the things I can control, and we were able to get the vote done. But the teams, I think, are on their own schedule and will act accordingly. But I do think with what we did here this week, it's much more likely that they'll decide to stay here.
Do you think the outcome of the vote today would have been different if there wasn't the tornado damage as sort of leverage to get some votes on this?
I don't know. I'd like to think that people took a look at both of those things on their own. I don't think anybody here voted for one thing just because of the other. I think our membership is pretty smart, and they voted on both things on their merits. So I'm not sure it would have been different.
You lost 13 votes from the amendment vote in May to today, and how crucial was the sweeteners that the governor added, the property tax, the $100 million for storm relief, to make people more comfortable with the whole special session?
Well, I'm not sure there were sweeteners. A lot of the property tax stuff, I think, made people shy away from the bill. I'll take a look at all the voting and what happened. I really do think members were not swayed by getting something for a vote. I think they just voted on things on their merits. We lost the votes, like you said. So I think a lot of things had a negative impact, but we had enough to get the bill passed.
How important was it to get this without changing as much as a comma and forcing another Senate vote? Was there any worry that a second Senate vote would go differently?
I think a second Senate vote on the Senate Bill 3 would have been impossible, just the way things, just the political climate after that vote. So we were very mindful of that. I thought if it goes back, it's not going to pass. So we were very mindful to keep that and vote it out clean, and I think we were able to do that.
What do you make of the concerns that now we do have this patchwork of property tax set up dependent entirely on what the Senate decided?
Yeah, that's very concerning to me, and I'm glad you brought that up. I do intend to appoint an interim committee to focus especially on property taxes. Its sole purpose will be to look at the property tax problem that we have in the state. You go around to any of the counties. I was talking with the governor this morning. He said he went to a county and they're bringing up property taxes. Of course, in Jackson County, this is a huge problem. I would say it goes to crisis levels. So I think what I'd like the committee to do is look at it, find legislation, propose legislation, and again, I would call on the governor during our September veto session to concurrently have a session that for legislation that would address the property tax problem.
Do you think this current property tax proposal would hold up in court?
I don't know. One thing I don't do is guess what is going to happen in our courts. I think I've heard from a lot of attorneys that say it absolutely will. I've heard from some that said that it won't. I do think it's constitutional. There's a severability clause in there, but I'll let them decide that. We can only control what we can control.
The initial appropriations bill contained only the $25 million and was later amended to include the $100 million for St. Louis only. Thoughts on the expansion of that and using the GR for that purpose?
I was very much in favor of it. I think it was mostly unanimous here. We always talk about St. Louis being the economic engine of our state. It's one of the greatest American cities that we have. It is hurting. It was affected by this event. I think Representative Kimberly Ann Collins spoke very passionately about that. It was very touching. And so the fact that we could give them $100 million along with the federal dollars, I think it's something that we needed to do and was very happy to do.
Speaker, is it too late for the stadium deal? Or what took so long? Couldn't we have done this in 2024 special session?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times when you're trying to do hard things, they get put off, and this was hard. It's not, it's not easy to explain to people why you're, and some people say giving money to billionaires. So I think it gets delayed naturally, but I think when it came down to crunch time, the Missouri legislature stepped up, passed what we needed to pass to give us a chance to keep the teams.
Because of the stadium package plus tornado relief and additional spending for it, how much tighter does this make budgets for the state in, say, year 2026 and 2027?
It certainly takes away from the bottom line. And again, I think when we talked about what happened with House Bill 19 earlier this year, one of the unforeseen benefits was that we had that funding for these unexpected things that happen. And that's why we like to keep things on the bottom line for these contingencies. One of the things I do want to mention is the $50 million for the MU reactor, which I'm very happy about. I think they're producing things there, drugs, isotopes that fight cancer, and I think a lot of that pays for itself. And so I was very glad to see the $50 million for the reactor.
There was some discontent over the fact that the appropriations bill just kind of wasn't a reiteration of House Bill 19. Are you expecting to see some of those projects come up next? I know it's early, but are you expecting some of these to return since they weren't?
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the things I think when I looked at the list of things that didn't get passed, there's a lot in there for small hospitals, rural hospitals, and as a healthcare professional, it really is important to me that in rural areas they have access to health care, and a lot of those hospitals are hurting. So I think in the future, and whether it's in a supplemental or during a special, we do want to address things like that. I was very happy that the money for the mental health facility in Kansas City got through. So I think all the stuff that didn't get done, we can consider that whether it's in September or in a supplemental.
Do you have any concern, given the federal budget negotiations underway, that you'll have to return again before veto session?
No, I don't have a concern for that, but I do think we will have to have a supplemental, and it is very concerning hearing things from Washington about cuts that would affect the Medicaid program. And I think Senator Hawley has been very vocal that we should not cut Medicaid, and I would join him in that. We'll just have to see what happens in D.C.
The chair of the Freedom Caucus lost his chairmanship after the Senate vote. I'm just curious, next session, what are relationships going to be like between Republicans? Is this stadium vote going to cause any strain? I know that's more Senate, but you have to work with the Senate.
I don't think so. I think what I've seen in the Senate this year is, one, they've got great leadership, and two, I think there's a much more collegial atmosphere. I think the atmosphere they've had in the past 3 years, they've collectively decided we don't want that, and I've seen a really a functioning Senate that's been different in the previous years. I know they will have their differences. I know the way the session ended was somewhat acrimonious, but I think when things come back in January, it will be somewhat like it is now, where people disagree, people argue, but they can at least get along and have a discussion.
So you don't think the multiple motions from Republicans to end debate on Democrats, which was met with not a lot of joy on their part, you think it's going to affect session?
Well, I think in terms of between the parties, I think the Senate dynamics will be there because of the PQs, but I think within the intra-party stuff, I think they can get over that. And from what I've seen, the intra-Republican politics is not as acrimonious, and I think they'll be able to come together. But you're right, the between the parties is we'll just see how that plays out.
If you could speak to Clark Hunt after this vote, what's your message to him, bottom line?
Well, I probably wouldn't speak to Clark Hunt. He's got better things to do than talk to me, but I would speak to the people of Missouri, and I think I would tell them, we passed a package that I think gives us a chance to be one of the 22 states that has an NFL franchise, which is really now a global game. We play eight games overseas, and to have one of these franchises in Missouri, I think, is very valuable, and it's worth partnering with the teams. Again, same with Major League Baseball. There's only 32 of them, and for Missouri to have 2 of them, that's a big deal. And if you're a company or a CEO of a company and you're looking to move to Missouri and you're looking for things that their employees can enjoy when they're here, that's one of the things that they'll look at. And hopefully companies will want to move here. And when the governor goes to France later next week, he can talk to a company about moving manufacturing here, because I think we've got great workers, we've got a great environment, and this just adds to it.
representatives mentioned that some people in his district wouldn't be able to afford tickets, and other representatives mentioned that Missouri residents are collateral in this. What would you tell them who are afraid that they are collateral?
Well, I'm not sure what he means by collateral. I do think the cost of tickets is pretty high, but I think you can get seats for a reasonable price. Again, I think that just speaks to how valuable it is that these things are so sought after that the prices are high, unfortunately. I do wish there would be some more affordable seats for the games, although I do think the Royals is very affordable. All right. Okay, thanks, guys.